Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Nines breakdown video with myself and Sloth today. An interesting link that's been coming out around Genoa midfielder Morten Frendrup. Apparently we had a 25 million euro bid rejected for him, and the Italian club considers the Dane not on the market unless a bigger offer comes in. So it's probably going to take around 35 million euros to get the deal done, Sloth. Just for those as you know who aren't aware of Frendrup, as a bit of an overview. He's still only 23 years old. His main position is kind of that defensive midfield position in the middle of the park, around 5'8". His contract is valid until 2025, and he has an estimated value of around 35 million euros based on what's come out. So, initial thoughts to the link to Frendrup, Sloth?
I really like him. I really rate him. So I think this is a really solid footballer, and it's also someone that I think in January or possibly even the year before January, Liverpool were looking at as a potential player to come in and be that six for them. So I think the stats are kind of deceptive because he is this really interesting combo of a 6 and an 8, but he's also happy to play anywhere. So when he joined Genoa, he made his debut as a right back, and I've got the direct quote here from his manager, from Gilardino. He described him as a player who can play anywhere, and a player who has dynamism, a great speed in his first few steps. He's a ball winner and a game changer. He's just a very reliable player. So I think that sums up sort of not just his ability, but his attitude. There is a ton of ability there, and I think the most comparable player to him is probably someone like McAllister, who Liverpool obviously ended up going for. But I think he combines that sort of ability to get stuck in and then play a brilliant pass, or produce a bit of a burst of pace to make space happen.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his defensive statistics when comparing him to the other kind of defensive midfielders or midfielders in the top 5 European leagues last season, you can see here exactly what you mentioned there from a defensive perspective. Just fantastic across the board. You look at the amount of tackles he's making, around 3.81 per 90, right in the high 99th percentile. He's winning 2.06 tackles a game. Again, you can kind of see where he's winning them. So a lot of the tackles he's winning are coming from that middle third of the pitch, which is really, really interesting to see because it's not always the easiest to do, and it kind of does paint towards how Genoa play as well. But again, you can kind of see he's someone that's also going to be blocking a lot of shots. He's going to be making interceptions. He's going to have a combination of tackle and interceptions per 90, and that combination of 5.27 tackles and interceptions per 90 minutes puts him in the 98th percentile when comparing him with other midfielders in top 5 European leagues. So he is a very, very good reader of the game from a defensive perspective. We have that in, I would say, Alvarez. In terms of his reading of the game and how he operates, it's kind of similar. What would you say the main kind of difference between Frendrup and Alvarez is from a defensive perspective?
I think from a defensive perspective, Alvarez is a lot more confident in the air. He's also probably, they both share quite a few similarities in their tenacity and their ability to get stuck in. Let's call it that. Like they are both very, very tenacious defenders, but I think Frendrup is probably that bit more confident on the ball. And although his assists don't really show it, I think it needs to be taken with a caveat that he does play for Genoa. And I would have no problem saying that I think if he were to join a side like West Ham, or if he were to join another sort of side pushing for Europe or around that spot, he would double those stats because his passing range is brilliant. And I think the similarities all come in that sort of tenacity, engine house area that we've lacked for a while, in terms of we tend to just have one player who does that. And maybe people might point at James Ward-Prowse having similar attributes, but I just think Frendrup all round as a sort of central defensive mid, box to box mid, he offers you far more. Not the same set pieces, obviously, but he's far better in terms of his reading of the game and tackles, clearly.
Yeah, a bit more mobile as well. I think, Alvarez, you can say probably one of his weaknesses playing in midfield is that kind of turn of pace and being able to. I think his reading of the game makes up for a lot of that when you kind of see how he operates on the pitch. But I think Frendrup gives us a little bit more dynamism in that midfield. But in terms of his possession statistics, again, you can kind of see here. The type of player he is, and again the way he plays in that Genoa system. He's not someone that's really carrying the ball forwards. You can see like progressive carries into the final third, etc. But then you kind of look at the bottom left hand side there, dispossessed just 0.40 times per 90, which is really, really low compared to other midfielders. Again, the type of player he is, he's someone that's defensively fantastic. And again, you can kind of see there the take on percentages and stuff. So he does need to. I think this kind of just alludes to me that he's more defensive minded than say someone that is playing as like a natural 8 or a number 10 midfielder. He's not that type of like creative player or someone that's going to necessarily drive with the ball forwards massively. What are your thoughts on those stats, Sloth? And does it kind of allude to the fact that he probably would be more of a defensive option if he was to come to West Ham?
Yeah, I think it definitely shows that he's more confident defensively, but I think it's also that caveat of knowing that he plays for Genoa and the options in front of him aren't always, the best options. And I mean that with the greatest respect to Genoa, but I think when you contrast their attack to Kudus, Bowen, even players like Paqueta, there's a massive leap in quality. And I think that also falls down into his decision making as well. He's a great recycler of possession, so he'll win it back and then he'll look to reuse it for the side. So I think in terms of his overall play, to be honest, that would be a perfect pivot. Him and Alvarez next to each other, I think they complement each other very well, and I think that those stats would probably change if he's in a bit more of a attacking, or should we say quality side. I don't want to be disrespectful, but
does he have the individual qualities to do that and be that, as we said, we need that kind of number 8 box to box midfielder who is going to carry the ball forwards and also offer a bit more defensive solidity in there. Can he be that player? Because again, from the outside in, you know a lot more about Frendrup than I do, but from what I've seen is, what the stats are showing at least is that he's not necessarily going to be able to, or not, he hasn't really shown that kind of side of his game as a number 8.
Well, he's got 4 assists this season, so in Genoa side. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that I think that is definitely there. His ability to go forward is there. He's got a great turn of pace in those first few yards as well, and I think that if you were looking at letting Bowen break or counter attacking, he's a great conduit for that. His passing range, as I mentioned, it's not going to look great on paper because he's for Genoa, but he is a very competent passer of the ball. So I think it's very easy to say that there are more attractive options out there, and I think if you were looking at someone like Manu Kone, he's potentially a bigger name. And someone more exciting, maybe like a Fofana as well. But I think Frendrup actually brings, obviously not quite as much aerial prowess, but he brings just as much ability on the ball.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and also, as we look at his shooting statistics and goal and shot creation here, you can see again a lot of the shot creating actions that have happened for him this season have come from defensive actions or fouls drawn. But again, it's, as you say, it's not when he plays in that type of system for Genoa. There's you are going to be limited as to how you play. It's the same with, if you look at Emerson, our left back. What are the kind of key qualities you'd think of Emerson? It's take ons, it's dribbling past players, it's being a more aggressive left back. well, actually, when you look at the statistics, his defensive ones are off the chart, because when we played under Moyes, we had a lot of defending to do. So obviously his tackles, interceptions are going to be higher. And, you know, the amount of dribbles and stuff he's making per game was actually lower because we don't have much possession. So there are nuances to it, which is why Sloth's input here is very good, because he's able to give us an actual recap of the player aside from the statistics as well. These kind of reinforces defensive ones, but also, again, I think for us, we need that person next to Alvarez who is going to not just be able to unleash the creative side, but also have that defensive solidity. You see how, you know, Arsenal have played last season with Rice often used as the 8, and then playing like a 6 underneath him, whether it Partey, Jorginho. Again, that's maybe not the route they want to go down long term, but it was incredibly successful for them in terms of their defensive, you know, output, and what they kind of then used as a platform to kind of take that forwards with. Because as you mentioned, when you've got players like Paqueta, Kudus, Bowen, even someone like Guilherme as he comes into the side, we're probably going to sign a left winger, we're probably going to sign a striker. So there, it does then give you that platform. And then again, it depends how Lopetegui wants to play with his system with the fullbacks he uses. So I think having that solidity in the middle of the park is going to be the biggest component of Lopetegui's summer transfer window, in my opinion. I think that is probably going to be the key thing for us going forward. So yeah, I think Frendrup's an interesting link. For 35 million euros, Sloth, what would you rate that transfer out of 10?
I really like him, but that's a big price to pay. I'd still probably give it a 7, just because I am a big fan. As I mentioned, you know, he's quite comparable to McAllister at Liverpool. And I think if you were to put that sort of player next to Alvarez, I think it'd be a really, really good move. So even for that big price, I'd still give it a very positive score.
Yeah, interesting. I think 35 million euros is a big fee. It might be one where we maybe look elsewhere and then come back to this one, just because there are a lot of other options. As you mentioned, Fofana's a big one that could come in and, you know, for pretty much half the price of what's being asked of Genoa. And, you know, as we've mentioned before with other clubs, they're entitled to ask for money. You know, he's one of their key players. He's got a contract. They have no obligation to sell him unless he tries to push a move through. We can only do what we do with our bids. So there's a lot of bids going in. There's a lot of different players that we are looking to recruit this summer. So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes from this. But yeah, let us know in the comments down below what you think of Frendrup. Would you like to see him in a West Ham shirt this summer? And if you enjoyed the breakdown, please do leave a like on the video. Subscribe for more content on the channel coming forwards. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you
Come on, you
Irons.
Irons.